All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Teen Bootcamp information session hosted by State Library Victoria. My name is Georgia, and I'd also like to introduce you to Richie. He's out there. Give a wave. Hi, Richie. We both work at the State Library, and we'll be here to assist you with any needs that you have today. So feel free to contact us in the chat. Before I go on any further, I just wanted to acknowledge that this session is coming to you today from the Aboriginal lands of the Kulin Nations, and to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I was going to ask that all participants have their cameras off and their mics off, which I can see is happening already, because today's session is going to be recorded. If you do have some questions for our guests today, you can just pop them in the chat and we'll take note of them, and towards the end there'll be an opportunity to share them. Today's session has been made possible by the generosity of the Cert Pills Foundation and JTM Foundation. We have with us today Alicia Sometimes and Jarrod Thomas, and the discussion will be moderated by the fabulous former Inky judge Fred Davis, with help from Yanan, who I've just learned is a fantastic slam poet as well. Over to you guys, Fred and Yanan.
Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Fred, and I was a 2019 Inky judge. I acknowledge that I'm on the land of the Wurundjeri people, and that and I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. Today we're going to talk to two writers who will be facilitating the teen writing boot camps. Alicia Sometimes is a writer, poet and broadcaster. She regularly appears on ABC Radio, talking books, and Culture is often touring with her poetry. She has also appeared in ABC TV's Sunday Arts, News Breakfast, Recovery and SBS's Nomad program. Alicia was a 2014 fellow at the State Library of Victoria and writer and director of the science poetry show Elemental that toured extensively in planetariums around the world. You can join Alicia's bootcamp on Tuesdays in April to write about science with clarity and infuse scientific thinking and concepts into your essays, stories and poetry.
Hey everyone, I'm Yanan and I'm joining you today from the Wurundjeri country. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Dr. Jarrod Thompson is a Ngunu person of the Southern Flinders Ranges and the curator of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander art and material culture at the South Australian Museum. He is also an international award-winning author of stage plays and contemporary YA novels. And in these workshops, learn from one of Australia's best novelists to find your writing voice and explore how to develop narratives. You can join Jarrod on Thursdays in May for your weekly installment in how to write contemporary stories with narrative drive and emotional truth. So let's get started. We're going to start off with some general questions for both authors. Now we might start off with Alicia. What were the influences that helped you get started as a writer?
Hello, thanks so much for having me. It's so great to be here. The funny thing is, in primary school and high school, I would write a lot of poetry and listen to lots and lots of music and watch a lot of comedy. So my influences came from listening to Bob Dylan and reading Winnie the Pooh and watching Monty Python. And then I heard, when I was, I think in grade 5, I heard Laurie Anderson. And for those who don't know, she's just this American powerhouse poet, musician who really was avant-garde and quite strong and powerful. And just hearing her work made me just want to be a little bit rock and roll with my writing. But the thing was, I would write little stories and pass notes in school, which I'm not encouraging anyone to do. But that's what started me, was making my friends laugh, and just that love of writing and reading and looking up encyclopedias as well. So I went kind of a really roundabout way in my influences.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I love how you draw your inspirations from music as well, and as well as passing notes in class. I might start doing that in class, to get my creative juices flowing. Now on to Jarrod.
Yeah, so my influences are pretty varied, but probably firstly it started off with music. So as a kind of 13-year-old kid growing up in Port Augusta and unfortunately, at the time, there was lots of racism in my hometown, and both my grandfathers are Aboriginal men. And I started to talk with them about their experiences growing up and just noticed all the yucky stuff that was happening in my town. And then I was lucky that at school, one of my teachers, he said, come and join the older boys. And we had this Aboriginal rock band. So we were playing songs by Bob Marley, No Fixed Address, Coloured Stone, and Midnight Oil. And that kind of music, plus just starting to look at the world. And I was watching a lot of current affairs and seeing what was happening in South Africa with Nelson Mandela and apartheid. And I was drawing comparisons between what was happening in my hometown, what had happened to my family. So there was kind of music was the first influence. And then there was a playwright called Roger Bennett. So I saw a play called Funerals and Circuses starring Paul Kelly, the singer-songwriter. And that had a really huge impact, a massive impact. And so I was only about 16 at the time. And I went, that's it, I've got to learn to write. Because all my family are storytellers, but I could not write to save my life. At least I couldn't write a sentence with correct grammar. So yeah, it was like watching that play. And then when I was at university and reading all the classics, all the English classics, I came across a writer called Olive Senior. So she's a Jamaican writer who's now in her 70s. And her work just blew me away because it felt like my hometown, but the narrative was set in Jamaica. Luckily, I got to work over in Jamaica with Olive, and now she's a dear friend. So, I've visited her a few times. We send each other Christmas cards. We send each other our books. So she's just been an incredible role model and influence. And, I'm getting inspired by writers all the time. Like there's a first-time author just released his book on Wednesday night, last night. Yeah, he's blowing me away at the moment. So yeah, lots of different influences.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. Now another question. We'll start off with, I guess, Jarrod this time. What will teens learn from your workshop?
Okay, so we'll probably learn a lot of crafts and also to a lot of trust in yourself. So how to be creative, how to let things flow, but also to have some discipline and some craft. So I am an old bloke, but I like to have a lot of fun. So like last night at 11:30, I was riding my skateboard down the Esplanade, right? Just for kicks. And I think it's good to kind of, yeah, and I was listening to some punk rock and so for me, creativity and self-expression is really important. But also like I want to be able to share with you guys some craft. Okay, so how do you develop plots? A really strong storyline, start to develop characters. How do you embed tension throughout the whole of a novel, if you're writing novel or short fiction, but also discipline, because it's very easy to talk about being a writer. It's very hard to actually be a writer. It takes a lot of discipline. So yeah, just to kind of, but it can be easy. So I want to teach you guys some tools about how you can just start writing and then say within a month, it's like, oh my God, I have all this work in front of me. And also how to be free. Okay, so one of the most important things when you start writing a first draft is to remember it's a first draft, to have fun, to loosen up. So when I'm working on a new project, it's like opening a present, all my Christmas presents at once. So yeah, a bit of discipline, lots of craft, lots of fun, creativity, and freedom.
Yeah. Important things, I guess, to have when writing a nice, interesting story.
They're balance. Balance is everything.
Yeah. Now, Alicia, what will teens get from your workshop?
Well, first of all, I want to sit in Jarrod's class. That sounds amazing. And I'm not as cool as Jarrod, you know, skateboarding down the Esplanade, but I did skate in the backyard the other day. Really, really rusty. I couldn't agree more with Jarrod about sort of getting in and delving straight away into writing. That to be a writer, you need to write. And there's so many of you out there have so many ideas and you need to get them down. So what I'd love to do, looking at science writing, is to look at all aspects of science writing. And I think we start with the most important thing, which is curiosity. What is going on with the world around us? And we're all so curious about everything to do with ourselves, to do with other people, to do with the political climate, to do with, you know, whether it's cells or a star or a nebula. We're just fascinated with everything that goes on around us. And a little bit of wonder and curiosity is so important. So I want to give you sort of some tools in your toolbox to, you know, just begin and look at different ways we can write about science, whether it's poetic, whether it's fiction, whether it's non-fiction. It's sort of an array of things that we can look at. And you can be a complete beginner, you can be a pro, it doesn't matter. We just want to go through some exercises. And like Jarrod said, a lot of fun, a lot of craft is really important. And it's, you know, I know so many of you out there are probably great readers, which is why you are coming along and listening to this and perhaps being part of the workshops, that to read is so important. So we just have little snippets of really great examples of science writing. So it should be a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to sort of igniting curiosity.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I'm really looking forward to that workshop. And I guess both Jarrod and Alicia here talked about being creative and being free about your writing and having the right tools in the toolbox, or like even delving straight into writing. And I guess they're all part of like this giant creative process. And like they both Alicia and Jarrod said, it's about crafting your ideas. So we all know that it's in the process is also thinking and problem solving. So I might start off with Jarrod here. So what is your favorite thing about the creative process? And maybe what's your least favorite thing?
Well, probably the favorite thing is like, so when I write, I get this really, really cozy feeling. Okay. And it actually, when I, you know how when people talk about being in the zone. So
Yeah.
when I'm in the zone, it's like I'm in my grandfather's living room, just sitting there chilling out, and he's in the kitchen cooking me soup. Right. So that's how it feels. And so I'm really, really cozy. So for me, it's meditation, and I get this excitement. Like it's so much kind of excitement when I'm writing, and then the problem solving. So it's like doing a big jigsaw puzzle when you're writing short fiction or any form of writing is like doing a jigsaw puzzle. So you find that little bit. It could be the you know, a particular character trait. It could be a line of dialogue, an expression, a new character, something thrown into the plot that just makes this work, you know, just like magic, like even more amazing. So for me, when I'm writing, like if I'm writing a sad scene, I need to make myself cry. Right. So I'll sit there writing and I'll just be like crying. And if I think I need something funny here, I need to be laughing out loud. Okay. So for me, it's really weird. Like, because it's like I've got all these voices in my head. And I think about them when I'm, you know, running or I'm dropping my daughters at school or, yeah, but it's, you know, it's a lot of fun. It's good to have all of those things, you know, filling my mind during the day and that problem solving.
Yeah, I find that really interesting, like finding the emotional connection and to get all your ideas flowing. And now on to Alicia.
Well, I want to flip it because I think what Jarrod said is great and I get moments of that. But I think I start with my head on the desk. So I am a head desk emoji. There is no question. I rip my hair out when I begin. I don't start the process of creating very comfortably. I'm not in my in a grandfather, near my grandfather. I love that image. That is so beautiful. But I start with a lot of different ideas. I'm quite frenetic. I might, whether if I'm getting into a science subject, I might think, okay, I'm going to write about the Orion Nebula. So do a little bit of research, write some things down, write some first words. I love picking up a dictionary. This is one of my favorite things to do. And just picking random words. As a poet, I'm like a bowerbird or a magpie. I'm just picking up different words and then somehow seeing how they come together. I discard a lot. I think editing is an essential process, and not to be too precious about how you spell, your grammar, anything like that, just to get it out that first go and not to be too self-conscious. But I am a really nervous writer, and maybe it's also because poetry is my first form, that everything to me has to be succinct. So I love it when authors just write reams and reams and reams of paper. I'm back editing like my fifth sentence. And so on a bad day and on a good day, I'll let go. So there's the great thing about writing is there's so many different ways to do it. But I guess when I'm on a roll, I've got some, classical music up full bore, and I've got a smile on my face because I know where I'm going.
Actually, Alicia, I just wanted to add something. So when I get to starting, I've actually, maybe like you, done lots and lots of plotting.
Yeah.
So it's like lots of plotting, lots of research, lots of thinking, and then I'm off. And once then it's happy days. But yeah, sometimes I could think about a book for a year before I start actually writing. Yeah.
Phew.
Yeah, that all sounds really important. Just getting everything flowing, getting into it straight away. And I guess leads to our next question. Like, how did you find that writing voice? Getting into that creative process, how did you find, writing voice?
I think that it's trust. At first, that voice in your head, you're not sure what it means or what it could be. And I think that you can doubt yourself, especially as a young writer, that perhaps you don't know where to go. And even you might copy a style, not plagiarize, but sort of copy the style of another writer, and you're looking for those words. What do you really want to say? So you're kind of finding your feet. But I always say this, your life isn't a cliche, your story isn't cliche, but how you write it can be cliche. So it is finding your story and finding a way that you can tell it in a very unique way, and finding elements of truth that connect with the audience. So it is just, for me, it is about trust. And I remember when I trusted that this was okay. As a performer, getting up on stage and reading your work can be great because you have instant feedback. But if you're a quieter type and you just show your work to someone else that you trust to start with, that can be great to get that sense of feedback, and you begin from there. But it really is about trusting your voice.
Yeah. And Jarrod?
Yeah, so I think for me, firstly, because I started writing when I was very young. So I was probably writing with real intent. I was about 18, 19 years old. I guess for me, it was, the reason I could do it is because I thought the story was really important. So I thought that what I was doing was really important. So there was purpose. For me, it was about, I was writing to address racism, because I knew how, just the negative impacts of racism on all people across society. So that was, understanding that purpose. But everyone's purpose is going to be different. It could be to make people laugh, to make people happy. so people can see characters that are like themselves in fiction, etc. So for me, kind of thinking about the purpose, why is this story important? Not to me, but to someone else. That gave me the kind of courage to be able to start expressing myself.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think both Alicia and Jarrod have really strong and poignant voices. And I think it's time that the audience has a little taste of what they write. So would you both like to read something of your own work to give the audience a little taste? We might start off with Jarrod.
I wouldn't mind starting off with Alicia, if
Oh.
that's okay. Is that okay, Alicia?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of
great.
course.
Awesome.
I'll just read one short poem, and this comes from looking at and studying gravitational waves. For those of you who don't know, it's when two large massive objects, whether they're neutron stars or black holes, circle each other, and then they come together and they make a ripple that goes throughout the universe. And Einstein predicted it many years ago, and it was confirmed not so long ago, and it was in a very exciting event. And I just liked, it spoke to me about the fact that gravitational waves go through us, but we're so unaware of all the things that go through us. So this is called Kilonova. We are detectives. We eavesdrop. Billions of years ago, two neutron stars circle each other, desperate and breathless, finishing their last pressing conversation. Remnants of once intense lives cascade into a final spiral until they embrace, smashing platinum and gold into existence. A violent coalescence, outshining at least 100 billion suns. Their collided mass propagating gravitational waves across the fabric of space at light speed. Gamma rays detected only a moment after. We were watching, we were listening. We saw them encompass each other completely with their final words rippling right through us. It's a little taste of the universe there.
Oh, I loved it. That was so beautiful. That was really like bringing science and painting a picture with all the stars. And I'm sure the audience loved it.
Thank
I see
you.
a lot of claps coming from the audience. That was
A bit chilling, but I guess I could really imagine the pictures of the neutrons and the gravitational waves, as you said. Beautiful.
I wish they used your work to describe science to me in school. It would have made everything so much easier.
That would make the textbooks more interesting too.
I like that. Poetry is a side note to everything. I love it.
Now, Jarrod, would you like to share something?
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna read from, this is one of my novels called Calypso Summer. This is my cousin Trent on the cover of this particular book. So I'll just read like a page in a little bit, just so that you can get an idea of the voice. It was 39 degrees. My boss hadn't paid me and I was too broke to fix my piece of shit 10 speed. A woman in a skirt and bikini top swung around the corner and quickly sidestepped out of my way. People are always doing that type of thing to me. It's not my dreadlocks that freak people out. It's because I'm black, and I ain't even that black. Just black enough for people to notice. I was just cruising home from work. It's not like I was wearing prison overalls. I looked all right. I was in my work clothes and my deadly new Pumas. Same one Usain Bolt wears, and he's the fastest man in the world. I couldn't wait to just lie down in the air conditioning. Shane, my next door neighbour's kid, was standing in the driveway smoking a cigarette. The dickhead thinks he's tough. Hey, Calypso, I've got some good gear, man. You want to buy a bag? He said, keen to make some bunder and have some company. Oh, man, you know I don't get wasted no more, I told him. Just have a smoke. See what you think. Man, if I wanted ganja, I've got way better things to do. I just kept walking. Just one smoke, he called out. I kept thinking about the air conditioning and told Shane to piss off. You're a fake, Calypso. What kind of Rasta don't smoke weed? Shane said before skulking back into his mum's place, his Australia flag boardies almost falling off his runty little ass. I hadn't smoked ganja for ages, but I could smell it coming from my flat as I turned the key in the door. Ron was in his room trying to smoke away his worries as usual. The air conditioning was deadly when it hit me, but it didn't help my mood. I was pissed off with Ron using all my electricity. I'd finally got my own place with my Bob Marley poster pinned up in the lounge room, a TV and a DVD from cash converters, a couch and fridge from the salvos, even a washing machine. But it wasn't me that was lapping it all up. Ron was. I threw my backpack on the couch and made my way to Ron's room. I called out to him before I walked in. He'd been real depressed, you know. If he'd tried doing anything stupid, I didn't want to walk in on that scene without warning. So yeah, I probably should have given a language and drug reference warning. But a lot of my young adult writing, it does touch on themes of drugs and alcohol and sex and all of the hard stuff that I think a lot of people your age have to contend with. So a lot of my books kind of explore those issues, and I really don't want to encourage you to do those things. It's more about looking, what happens to people when they choose particular actions.
Yeah, it's a really, really powerful and a really strong voice too. And I think at the same time as it may be a bit confronting, I guess it raises awareness about a lot of issues that I think young people or adults should be more aware of.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I think, that was a lovely little session and we got to hear two amazing, pieces from Alicia and Jarrod. And now we'll be moving to the second section of our session today. So we have some more specific questions for Alicia and Jarrod. So we might start off with Alicia. Now, I guess everyone might be wondering, why do you want to include science in your writing? What makes it so engaging that you have to put it into a poem or write it up into a screenplay?
That's a great question. And it's one of those things from when I was very young. Sure, I had a picture of Harrison Ford on the wall, but I had pictures of scientists on the wall. I absolutely loved the idea of studying the universe, and my life took a different path. I went an artistic way instead of a scientific way. The teachers said at high school that I probably wouldn't be a great scientist. They wouldn't say that today. Teachers are amazing, but they said to me, no, stick with the arts. So I did. But this absolute nagging inside me, this yearning, this absolute desire to understand the universe is really big. And poets for centuries have been looking to the moon and to the stars and wondering what's inside ourselves, and climate change is important. Science affects us in so many ways. Look at COVID, look at there's so many aspects of our lives that are affected by understanding ourselves and understanding science. So I think it's one of those things as a poet, it's a go-to. You have to look at the world around us. And I am just particularly in love with quantum physics and the universe, because I like the idea of the micro, the really small, at the quantum level, what goes on inside us, what goes on within quarks, with our atoms, and then also the expanse, a nebula, galaxies, what's beyond the universe, how's the universe going to end? How did it begin? These things keep me up at night. I need to know. So I absolutely love looking at science and because I think by looking at science, you look at bigger questions as well. And there's so much around us that affects us. So important.
Yeah, I really enjoy science too. It's so broad, but we really only like touch on biology, chemistry, or physics in school. And the teachers too, they say that it's really separated in STEM or the arts, but there's actually a bridge between the two, quite like very different subjects. And I find that really interesting as well. So you said something about like a lot of questions. So in your works, do you try to answer them, or do you try to keep them as open-ended questions for the reader to answer?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. I'm sure in any kind of writing, you want the reader to explore questions and think, relate it to their own experiences. So you want to leave the audience satisfied a little bit. So I'm more like a painter just or a musician, just giving an element. I try to be evocative or emotional. And I just recently did a planetarium show on gravitational waves, and I just wanted audiences to walk in, be amazed, and go away and learn something more and just feel something. So it's like little vignettes, and I kind of want to power punch with emotion. So unlike a novel tying the story up, I want you to go away and think about things yourself.
Yeah, I think that's great.
All right, now we should have some questions from Jarrod. So, Jarrod, I know you've written for the stage and the page. Do you approach them differently, or is it sort of the same way that you tell the story?
No, it is. It's so different, actually. So one of the things that I really enjoy, that I'm glad about. So I started writing theatre initially, just because I saw this great play and I thought, amazing, I want to go and do that. So then I started to write theatre, and what it really helped me to develop was strong dialogue, because because in theatre, like everything that you see pretty much on stage is conveyed through dialogue. So dialogue needs to be very specific. Whereas within a novel, you can explain a whole world and a whole universe a lot easier. So yeah, because when in theatre, you've got to think about the expense to put on a show. So how many actors can you pay to perform? So that really influences what's going on stage. Whereas in a novel, you can just really focus on a community, like a town, a planet, a particular world, and expand it a lot more. So yeah, the approach is quite different.
Yeah, I imagine it'd be very expensive to pay a whole world of actors to act out your play for you.
Exactly.
And yeah, another one. Why do you write for teens? Why not for adults? Or yeah.
Okay, so all right, so I guess what is it? So I didn't start writing for teens. I thought I was going to write historic kind of drama for adults, and that's how I started writing these very serious plays. And so one of my plays was performed in Kenya and Uganda when I was 23. So I went across there, and it was very difficult because AIDS was so prominent. So 1 in 5 people had AIDS, and with the cast in my play, nearly everyone in that play had family or friends or parents, relatives that had died from AIDS. And in fact, one of the young actors in the show, in the initial play, I went to visit him in an AIDS clinic. And I came back to Australia, and it was very hard in Kenya, but Kenya and Uganda, but there was lots of really beautiful stuff. How the community was supported, everyone seemed to have lots of food. Everyone had this kind of purpose. And so yeah, strong community life. And then I got back to Australia, and I remember picking up the paper, and I saw that one of my father's friend's children had suicided. And he was only like my age, early 20s. And I started to question Australia as a lucky country. And I started to look at all the kind of pressures that are placed on young people. So there's expectations around gender. You know, there's the way that class influences on us, sexuality, you know, drugs and alcohol. Alcohol is so prominent within Australian society. So I wanted to really kind of examine that and to kind of put up alternatives for young people. So I think for me as a teenager, there were so many expectations. And I really didn't want to fit those expectations. So life was pretty tough as a young kid, as a teenager. So for me, writing, really, it's like I write because I don't want young people to experience the things that I did, or at least if they do experience some of those things, I want them to find an easier pathway through it. So in my books, really, it's about it's about developing pathways to deal with things that all teenagers, young adults deal with at some point in time.
Yeah, that's all really prominent, and it's good that someone's out there telling, I guess, young adults like me and Yanan that it is okay to not like fit the mold. You can do what you want and
carve your own pathway.
Yeah.
Exactly. And probably, you know, when I started writing, when I wrote my first novel, I was 23. I'm now 45. I turned 45 last week. So I'm getting old, right? Like, and I don't know how long I will. I've got another book coming out next year with Alan and Unwin. I don't know how long I'll keep writing young adult fiction. Like, I might move to something else, but I'm delighted now that there's all these young writers that are coming through, which means I can just retire at some point, or I go back to writing, you know, writing other types of work, or I could surf and skateboard and all those things that I like doing a bit more.
Yeah. Another one, Jarrod, I guess. As a little teaser before your workshop, what is your top tip to help teens start writing?
Well, for me, it's got to be about passion. Like, you've got to have a story that is just, it's just, you know, burning to get out of you. It needs to be wanting to jump out of you. So when you start explaining it to someone, you have a lot of excitement about that particular story. So it could be something really delightful, or it could be something really tough. And for me, it was like the really tough stuff that I just had this fire in my belly and I just couldn't live unless I just, you know, just let this all out. So for me, it's kind of, it's looking at what ignites this real passion and excitement in you. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to jump in because we do have a question in the chat from Monica, and it is, have either of the writers experienced being in a bootcamp atmosphere before? From a participant aspect, does this have any influence on why you want to run these now? So maybe as a young person or even as an adult, have you been in a writing workshop? I guess is the question.
I would have loved one when I was younger, that's for sure. I remember sitting in my room for days reading a particular author and having like a mini festival on Ursula Le Guin or, you know, something like that. That was a great thing, but I would have loved this. And as an adult, yes, I've done many boot camps and many writers. You never stop learning as a writer. So I think I'll be doing them till, you know, I'm 100. I think the great thing is the feedback sometimes you can get with other attendants. And it's also sometimes you just to have that jumping off period. So someone throws a workshop at you, an idea or an exercise, and you go from there and perhaps try a style on, like, you know, a new pair of clothes, new pair of boots, and you just try something different. So it is fantastic when you have that workshop environment, even to leave some of your fears at the door and just go for it.
Yeah, so I was 17 when I was actually 16 when I enrolled at Adelaide University. Wanted to be a writer. I was 16, but by the time that classes started, I was 17. So there I was in a classroom setting, with students that everyone was way older, even the other people that had graduated from year 12. So yes, immediately I was thrown into kind of different creative writing exercises, and I now have a PhD and have taught and presented a lot, a PhD in writing, creative writing, and I'm always learning. Like I've learned from this particular session and listening to Alicia. So like you're always learning, and I remember the last big festival that I attended was an international one, was the Edinburgh Writers Festival. So I was listening to other authors speak a lot, and I remember just coming back, just learning just so much. Like I thought I was a writer, and I knew all this stuff, but just within that couple of weeks of being in Edinburgh, my mind just exploded. So I have been in kind of boot camp sessions, at different times over the last 20 years.
I'm sure.
Yep, sorry.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, I'm sure that's helped you kind of weed out the good exercises from the boring ones as well, and gives you a sense of what it's like to be on the other side.
Yeah, for sure. And I think so I'll try to be setting homework and different exercises during the sessions, and things that I found helpful. And like your experience with me is going to be one of many experiences that I hope you have as an author. So there'll be some things you take from me, you'll go, oh, that was awesome, that stuff I did with Jarrod. That didn't really suit me. And it might stick with you in another 20 years. You might remember something that I said, but you'll pick up all these other influences as well. Yeah.
Cool. There's one more question, which we'll just have to answer really quickly, like a speed round, because we're about to run out of time, which is from Isabella, who says, did you ever have times when writing helped you through a really difficult time? Does it have an impact on your personality? So that's a massive question to answer in 1 minute. Maybe just, has it helped you through a difficult time, really quickly, before we say goodbye? Alicia?
Yeah, look, in 25 words or less, absolutely. It's been my best friend many times. Things I've said on the page, I've never, ever dared speak aloud. And I don't know how many times I've gone over old notes and thought, oh my God, I'm glad I did not send that or write that. It's really important to be, friendly with your writing. And has it shaped my personality? I have to write. So yeah, it's always in my pocket.
I would say, yep, absolutely. And I can talk about this more, but a few years ago, I broke my ankle in 4 parts.
Ooh.
And then everything went really bad. Okay, so it was a really, really tough time. And the fact that I was midway through a manuscript helped me stay buoyant. Okay, so it was a really sad time. And then, writing, I grew up very, very tough and very, things weren't easy when I was a kid, and writing has got me all around the world. So it's been a really, really great gift to me to be able to develop as a writer.
Wonderful. That's really great. And we squeezed it in just in time. Thank you all for joining us out there. I'm sorry we couldn't see your faces, but it was nice seeing your names on the screen there. Thank you, Yanan. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Jarrod. Thank you, Fred. And we hope to see you all in the boot camps.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
See you later.
Nice to meet you all. See ya.